Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel and podcast, and welcome back to another match preview after the 2-0 victory last night against Leicester in the Carabao Cup. We are now focusing on the Premier League. We have a home fixture again, back-to-back, which is nice, against Fulham this Sunday. And this is your match preview for that game. I'm Scott. I'm your host for this one. And as you can see, I am joined by 4 of the Gallowgateshots' finest members of the team. I've got Daryl, Joe, Harry, and Iain. I'm not going to go through everyone because this is going to be an hour-long video if I say, hello, how's everyone doing? So just everyone wave and everyone smile and we'll all be good. We've also joined by Daniel Radcliffe as well, if you saw the comments from the last video, and Frankie Boyle, apparently. So there you go. Famous faces throughout the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. So like I said, we will be playing a home game on Sunday. It's a 2 p.m. kickoff against Fulham. But before we get into that, you all know the drill. The Gallowgateshots match preview is brought to you by Magpin badges. Magpin badges are the go-to site for high-quality, unofficial enamel pin badges of Newcastle players, legends, and retro kits. And I hope they make a Dan Burn dancing pin badge because they will sell like hotcakes in Greggs. Their website is magpinbadges.bigcartel.com. Check them out for all of your pin badge goodness. Right, let's get on with the preview. Like I said, Sunday, 15th of January, Fulham at home, 2 p.m. kickoff. It's live on Sky for you folks in the UK, and it'll be on probably every other channel in the world, because if it's on Sky, it's on everywhere else, so you'll have no problems in watching it. Fulham have not been doing too bad of late. They're currently 7th in the league, 28 points they're sitting on, 8 wins, 4 draws, and 6 defeats. And they have a +3 goal difference. Joe, we'll come to you first, mate. What are your confidence levels going into this Fulham game?
It can't be much higher, given the incredible defensive record that we've got and the fact that Fulham, for all that they've got a Serbian war machine up front, don't seem to have much going on at the back. I think, given the confidence levels that we've had, especially coming off the 2-0 win and just our general league performance, I don't see any cracks in the team that would cause me much concern going into this match, to be honest.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Another thing to bear in mind as well, we're recording this on Wednesday and Fulham play Chelsea tomorrow. So we'll have a 2 or 3 day advantage in terms of general match fitness. Daryl, do you think that'll come into any considerations when it comes to the game, or do you think Fulham should still be well prepared, even though it is a long journey up the A1 or whichever way they decide to come?
Well, Scott, we said this about the Leeds game, if you remember, about how we had a couple of days head start on them going into that game. I think Fulham's going to be a little bit of a different approach for that one, a little bit of a different challenge, let's say. Like Joe said, Mitrovic up front is going to be a handful for our boys at the back. Given our strength at the back, really, we should be able to handle him quite well. Again, at the back for them, I think there's certainly things for us to exploit. We should be able to get another hatful of goals. I'm not going to say we're going to get as many as we did down there because, they were down a man in that game anyway. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good game. They're on a good run at the minute. The way I'm going to say it's like everybody's beaten Leicester at the minute, but they've had a good result at Leicester as well. We had a good result at Leicester, etc. So it's going to be good to see, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, you mentioned the away fixture there and that they had a man sent off. They are quite prone to a few red cards this season of Fulham. I think they're up there in terms of the top number of cards, Harry. Given our defence and given, our shithousery, if you will, do you think that's something we could maybe capitalise on? And again, maybe it's not bank on getting one of their players sent off because you'd never like to see that, but it's certainly something to keep in your back pocket if the game isn't going your way, that, you can rile them up and they'll put in a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can be quite tactical with it as well. So say if Maxi was on the pitch, for example, we know he's a bit tricky and it's easy to foul him. So if you could get kind of a yellow card nice and early in the game, they're not going to want to kind of put a foot in just in case. I mean, you see it against Leicester after the penalty. When we got into the box, they didn't want to put a foot in for the second goal. You could kind of see it because a penalty had already been awarded, and the same goes for cards as well. But I think with Fulham, I think everyone would consider them as a yo-yo club really over the past few years. They come in the Premier League, spend a lot of money, and then go down again, then come back up because they're on the Championship. But they are seventh, and you've got teams like West Ham that are at the bottom of the table. Yes, we're absolutely flying, especially after the game against Leicester in the Cup. It does fill me with confidence no matter who we come against. And I'm not usually like that. Before the match yesterday, I could hardly breathe. I was just terrified. I had so much hope, and I'm so used to my hope just being crushed. But no, I think even yesterday with our defence as well, when there's one mistake, there's someone there to cover. We'll look a very, very good team when we have that strongest 11 out, which I do believe was the team that we saw last night.
Yeah. Iain, obviously the away fixture was a 4-1 win. The red card, you don't like to say had a big part in the game, but it certainly played its part in the game. Goals from Wilson, Miggy got a couple. I think that started his goal scoring run, shall we say, which is, he got an assist last night. He's still going good. And Sean Longstaff got on the score sheet. Would you expect a similar performance given in that game we had around 70% possession, 19 shots with 10 on target? Do you think more the same, or do you think it'll be different if, provided they keep all 11 men on the field?
Good question. I think in terms of possession, I think we'll probably have I wouldn't say as much as 70%, but I think we will dominate the game. I do think it'll be set up a little bit different. I think Fulham, for all that they have done fantastic this season, I think the 6 losses I think have come against the top 4, Spurs and West Ham. So I think it'll be a case of, like you say, for all they've done well, they'll come and try and frustrate. Well, they'll do pretty much what Bournemouth have done, what Palace have done, what Leeds have done, and try and pick off on the counter. But I'm confident enough going into the game after a really good win last night to do enough to get 3 points. But I don't think it'll be as high scoring as the return fixture.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, actually. Joe, you mentioned the Serbian destroyer in Alexander Mitrovic. He's obviously coming back off a suspension after receiving his 5th yellow card, to many FPL managers' dismay when it was a double game week. Could we also maybe work that into our favour, the fact that he's now on a blank slate and he's probably going to be a bit gung-ho? Do you think maybe you can get under Mitrovic's skin and, he knows he can sacrifice a yellow card now because he's not going to miss an important game? Do you think that's something that, again, we can maybe capitalise on?
He's prone to a few yellow cards, but I don't know if someone can correct me, but I don't think there's been any time in recent history where he's gotten a straight red.
Don't think so.
He did when he was first playing for us, but then he kind of calmed his temper a little bit. And honestly, I actually think that now that he's coming back with a blank slate, if anything, it'll just rile him up a little bit more to think he can be a bit rougher with defenders and give Botman and Cher something to work with. It's probably not going to work too well in our favour in that regard. However, the strength that we've got in our defence, I think we have enough to maybe not stop him scoring completely, but enough to definitely mitigate his chances. He's got 11 goals so far this season. That's not something to that we can take lightly, and it wouldn't surprise me at all, given that they've got some quality set piece takers in the likes of Pereira, Willian. He's come into a little bit of form recently. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they managed to nick a goal.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously the Mitrovic that we all know and love is probably a much different player to the Mitrovic we see today. I think he's matured quite a lot. His time in the Championship especially as he's got a good taste for goals, and he's continued that this season, which is always nice to see. We always like to see, former Mags doing well for the clubs that they're currently at, as long as they don't do well against us when they face us. Daryl, they've got a couple of injuries. Shane Duffy and I think it's Cabano are both out. Either that's my autocorrect has changed that name when I typed it down. But not much more from there. And I also think Shane Duffy might actually be back, because I think it was just an illness, so he could be back for the game. So they're looking pretty much full strength, but we did mention obviously the Chelsea game, so maybe there'll be a bit of rotation. Are there any other players that Fulham have that you're particularly worried about?
Not necessarily. They've got a bit of a dynamic midfield. They've got who the name escapes me right now, but the lad in midfield who we were linked with for a while a few years ago when we were in the Championship. Like I say, I can't remember his name now, but we were quite interested to bring him to the club at that point. Never happened, of course, but he was seen as a bit of a playmaker. And the way Marco Silva sets them up, they are very much geared to provide service for Mitro, and it's going to be a case of how we deal with them in the wings, in defending their attacks, basically, because you'll have Willian, you'll have Pereira, whoever on the other side. They'll be flying down those wings and putting balls in left, right, and centre just to try and get service to Mitro. And I think the lads in the middle will be able to handle Mitro in that respect as well. I do agree with Joe as well. I think it will give his situation around yellow cards at the minute. I mean, he's probably wanting to have a bit of a rough and tumble time on Sunday. But again, whether or not he can use some dark arts, for example, and maybe get him booked, or even somehow make him lose his mind, and maybe a stray elbow here, there, or anywhere. You never know with VAR knocking around. I mean, I think we can all agree that had VAR been around in those early days of Mitro, I think we might have seen him get sent off a bit more than he actually did, because he was one for the odd little dig with an elbow here, there, and everywhere. And he was a bit of a character, and we loved that in him, really, didn't we? We're like the little character that he was then. But yeah, I think it's all going to be about how we nullify the effect of them providing the service to Mitrovic up front.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you mentioned VAR there when we had Mitrovic. I remember seeing him. I think it was his first game against Southampton that season, and I think he came on the pitch and just absolutely clattered someone. And like I say, if VAR was around, he probably would have been off the pitch within about 2 minutes. So it's all good. We didn't have VAR back then. Iain, turn our attention to Newcastle. There doesn't seem to be any new injuries coming off the game last night. Obviously, we're doing this before Eddie Howe has his press conference, so we'll know more on Friday. The three that are currently out, obviously, it's John Joe Shelvey, Emil Kraft, and Matty Targett. They don't seem to be misses for the starting 11. So would you expect same again when it comes to what we played last night based on what we'll do this weekend, or do you think there'll be a bit of rotation or a bit of tactical changing against Fulham?
I mean, you ask this question every week. I give my opinion, and it's always the opposite. That's why I'm not a Premier League manager. So yeah, given how usually goes, it's very much he doesn't make changes unless he needs to. I think, given the performance last night, to be fair, I thought Bruno was getting the shit kicked out of him in the second half. Trippier went down as well, which usually doesn't go down unless it's serious, but obviously it looks like everyone came through unscathed. So I would have very much expect the same starting 11. Only change I could see potentially is, I think it was ones that you discussed on a previous, where St. Maximin, I think it was for the Leicester game, where you'd maybe drop Longstaff because he has had a lot of minutes, move Joe Linton into the middle, and then play St. Maximin. But again, based on last night, speaking of the guy that I was sitting next to, the sort of fluidity of Joe Willock and Joe Linton and how they change sort of position throughout the game, I think is absolutely excellent. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's the exact same 11.
Yeah, you mentioned the fluidity between Joe Linton and Willock. We've mentioned it a few times on the match reviews and on these previews. And last night, Dan Burn got into the mix of that, and he was getting forward quite a bit. Harry, would you like to see more from Dan Burn getting forward, given how well it worked against Leicester? last night. Is that something you think we could use against Fulham at the weekend?
It's definitely dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous because you have a lot of pace. If we get caught on the counter, then we're screwed because he's the one that's meant to sit back and turn it into a 3-1 Trippier does it. I wouldn't mind it because it was great to see him score. I went absolutely wild. Like, had a bit of a, like when you kind of stand up too fast, you go a bit dizzy. It was like one of them moments that was brilliant. I think I think we have to be smart about it. Unless it kind of opens up in the game and it appears that he's getting space and he can do it, then happy days, go for it. But not when we're pressing. If we've got them pinned in, absolutely, where he was last night, winning the ball to start his goal off, really. Absolutely, you can stay there for all you like because you've still got the line behind you, but not when you're pushing for a goal and you don't have them kind of pinned back. Yeah, brilliant to see him score, but no. If you can just stay back a little bit, Bernie, it'd be brilliant.
Yeah, he's quite deceptive as Dan Burney. He appears to be a lot slower than he actually is, and I think it's because he's got such long legs. He can cover quite a lot of the field in like 3 or 4 steps, and you don't realise it until you see it. It's good. Another player who's been slowly brought back to the fold is Isak. Are we expecting, Joe, that he might get a bit more minutes than he did last night? I was personally surprised he only got, I think it was 10 minutes when he came on.
I was a little bit considering that he had 45 on Saturday.
Yeah.
The idea is that we need to get him back up to fitness. What I did find very interesting was that he subbed Wilson for him. There's always been this debate. Obviously, we've not seen them both fit at the same time. Would he look to maybe play them together as a 2? Obviously, that would change the system up a little bit.
Yeah.
It seems to be, with that substitution, it seems to sort of suggest that idea isn't in Howe's mind. So in that regard, I would obviously still start Wilson. He has been phenomenal for us. His hold-up play, we spoke about last night, his hold-up play, his turns, his skills, very much has been missed when he's not been in the team. Whether we then decide to play Isak on one of the wings, perhaps, we've seen that he can play out wide and he's got enough skill to, maybe take on fullbacks, that sort of thing. It'd be really interesting to see whether he does that. But then who do you drop? You can't drop Miggy, that left-hand side, but then ASM's coming back. It's a bit of a predicament, and it's going to be one that we're going to know a little bit more of in the next 2-3 months. I would suspect that he'll introduce him slowly, Bruno style. There's no need to rush him back in, given how we're playing, and we're getting goals from all over the pitch. I think it's going to be a slow introduction. I don't think that he'll be a regular into the side until probably March time. Again, how Bruno was introduced, but that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. He's a young kid. He's 23, still has a lot of time to develop, and it's not a travesty if we don't see him playing too regularly. Having said all that, I would expect him to get a little more than 10-15 minutes. I think he's a fantastic player that we've seen, and it would be a shame, especially given Callum Wilson's injury record. We know that his fitness has been a major issue, and we can't rely on him for really more than half, 2/3 of a season. To share those minutes with Isak, given, depending on who we're playing, would be a great option for Howe to have, and I'm sure that he'll utilize that the best he can.
Yeah, Eddie Howe tends to kind of like to change it quite a bit when we go, I think 3-4 goals up, and he's normally, I'm not saying we're going to score 3-4 goals at the weekend, but normally that's when he'll make the change. Kind of got the feeling last night he was waiting for that 3rd goal and it never came, so he kind of was like, okay, I better make these changes now. And I think with the St. Maximum substitution, I think he was on the sideline for a good 5 minutes beforehand. I remember, Harry, you texted into the group chat, and it seemed to take forever for him to actually come on, and the TV never showed him on the sideline, so we didn't know what was happening there. Daryl, with St. Maximum, is it just a case of, same with Isak, and slow and steady, kind of pace him into the team and just kind of introduce him as an impact sub, or does he get a start for you at all this weekend?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to try and just utilise him as an impact sub for the time being, Scott. It's been a debate in the past as to whether or not his best work is from starting or coming on as an impact sub, because we know he needs a little bit, at least a good 5 or 10 minutes just to grow into the pace of a game when he does come on. I felt just going back a little bit in time, I felt like he wasn't used enough when he came on against Leeds. And he got used a bit more when he came on against Leicester.
Yeah.
And you saw that straight away, and he was getting really involved in the game very well. And, he just, while he was stood on that sideline waiting to come on yesterday, he was having a pretty long conversation with Eddie. Obviously, Eddie giving him plenty of instructions and whatnot about what to do when he came on. It's interesting as well to mention Isak as well. Agree with Joe there. And, I think it's the way he was used last night was pretty much how I expected it to be. And it's nice to see him come on. And there was a little bit of a partnership sprung up immediately with Bruno, and he was played in a couple of times by Bruno, some great little through balls that just cut Leicester right open. And then going back to St. Maximin, I think, it's very hard to change the team when it's performing so well, and we've mentioned that already. So for me, it's going to be a case of introduce them later on in the games, and it's just nice to have that luxury and to have that quality to come off the bench, because if we need to switch pace up later on in games, we've got it in those two. And it also gives her a little bit of a change in dynamic as well. And also to touch on the Dan Burn issue as well about him going forward, it was quite a nice thing to see. And it was also a change, like a bit of a change, a bit of a refreshing thing to see, because it means that Trippier can also fulfill the role that Dan Burn does when Trippier goes forward and vice versa now. And I think that might have been done more for the benefit of opposition teams who were probably starting to get a little bit wise to how we are playing and how we tend to overload our attacks down the right-hand side. And it was nice to see yesterday that we actually probably did most of our attacking down the left. Almiron wasn't that involved, and it turned out that everything went down the left, and you had that three. The three of them were almost like how Bruno, Trippier and Almiron were earlier in the season.
Yeah, they showed a graphic, I think, around 25-30 minutes last night on the TV, where Trippier was the furthest player back, obviously apart from Nick Pope, who was obviously in goal. He was kind of the slant was that way and not that way in terms of like the defensive four. It was very good to see. It's a nice option and a good way to switch things up and a good way to, like I say, catch the opposition off guard. We'll come to predictions. We'll come to you first, Iain. What are your predictions? And also, I don't know if you've seen him yet, but has Joey got us a prediction this week?
Haven't seen him this week because he's been back at school, but we are going to the game because it's his birthday on Saturday. So I've managed to get tickets. So as long as they win, I don't care, as long as the score goes. But I think it'll be more conservative than what the away fixture was. Obviously, they went down to 10 men early. That helped. I think they'll probably set up very similar to how Leeds set up, how sort of teams that'll just sit there and hope for us to break them down. I do think we've got goals in worse, so I'm going to go 2-0. I think I've seen a stat today, possibly I'm sure we've only conceded 4 or 5 home goals this season. Although Mitrovic is a good player, he's in good goal scoring form, I think at the minute I just can't see us ever conceding. And it's always in the back of my mind when I do these match previews that I think this every week, and then I think, would you to get like absolutely hammered or like concede, and it just never happens. So I hope it doesn't start now. So yeah, I'm going to go for 2-0 win.
Awesome. Daryl, come back to you, mate. What's your prediction for this one?
I actually had a big thing about this this afternoon. Obviously, reminiscing again from the game last night, watching another round of highlights and a few bits and bobs that we were sharing around in the WhatsApp group. And I did have a good think about it. And I was thinking it's definitely not going to be as dominant as it was down at Craven Cottage. I think they'll be wise to us, and they'll obviously have that extra man back in their side as well. I can't see that happening again. They'll not want to repeat that for sure. And I was thinking exactly the same as Iain, and I'm going with a 2-0.
2-0 then. Yeah, I think it was 8 minutes or something that they got the man sent off in the away game. So I mean, that's pretty much an entire game. I mean, it is an entire game when you think about it, really. Harry, what's your predictions, mate?
There's a good range of opinions here because I'm going to go 2-0 as well. I think it will be. I think the game will start cagey. I imagine if we start Wilson, that's where he works quite well, because I feel like over time, since he's got a bit older, he's changed his, like, going back to kind of the Isaac Wilson thing, I suppose. He's kind of changed his style a little bit. There was an over-the-top through ball last night where he was destined to get it, and he was running, and he just wasn't getting any faster. And I was like, what's going on? Like, he just got a little bit slower, but he's still got the strength, and he can still pass the ball and move. So I think if we start the game with him, fantastic. We'll most likely get a goal, probably maybe a scrappy goal. But I think the second will come if it opens up a little bit. Because I'd love to see on the pitch. I really would for a decent amount of time where, I mean, maybe not half time, because you don't see half time substitutions really in the Premier League. Maybe 60-minute mark and get him on, because he's the type of player that, I mean, last night when you're watching him, he drifts very wide. He's kind of hugging kind of like the left-hand side or the right-hand side because he wants it over the top or he wants it through. He doesn't really want to pick it up, pass and move. He just wants to go. So if the game opens up after that point, that's when I think we could get the second, if not more. But I do think 2-0, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, it was funny watching Isak over the past couple of games. His off-the-ball movement is very, very clever. He is a footballer, but there's always that line when you're watching youngsters play, like, oh, he runs like a footballer, him. And I mean, he does. I mean, it's great to see, because it keeps players guessing of where he's going to be. Joe, mate, what is your prediction for this one?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that's been said. I also want to reemphasize that with them playing Chelsea on Thursday, that is huge for us. Hopefully it'll tire them out. You never know, they may get a suspension. I don't think you can completely discount Mitro, though. You don't fluke this many goals so far this season without doing something right. I still think that we'll win, though. So I'm going to say 2-1. And if they do get a goal, it's almost certainly going to be Mitro. Could be a set piece, could be anything. But I wouldn't be surprised if we keep another clean sheet. We're absolutely mint. Our defense is the best in the Premier League for a reason. But no, I'm for the pure sake of Mitro's current record and the fact that they can whip goals into him, I think I'm going to say 2-1.
2-1. Yeah, looking at the results and watching Fulham play, and I've only seen them play, I think it was against Man City and against Tottenham, where I think both results were 3-2 in the end, which I don't think we'll ship 2 goals, but I think it'll be close to that. And I think it'll be 3-1. I think they'll score first, and I think it'll be quite an early one, which will make it a quite cagey rest of the game. But I think we'll equalise, and then, like I say, second half we'll just get another couple in, and it'll be totally different. So I'm going to go for 3-1 for my prediction. Before we wrap this one up, boys, does anybody have anything they want to add to this?
Yeah, I will. You were talking there, Scott, just before you'd said your prediction about Isak's movement, and I'll put it to the rest of the lads in here. Do you think it reminds you of Papi Cisse? Because he used to make a nice little run off the back of a defender like that, and with the skill that Cabaye had, he was always able to find him. And I think we might see that between Bruno and Isak going forward.
It's funny. I was literally just thinking earlier today how much I miss Papi Cisse, and I was also thinking if you know what, right? He got a lot of criticism for straining offside positions, but then a lot of people will counter that by saying, you know what, he was actually on the ball that a lot of the players just couldn't. They weren't on the same wavelength. Now that got me thinking: if Trippier and Papi Cisse played together, or with Bruno, if you had Papi Cisse in this current side, how many more goals do you think he would get just from some quality passes from the byline? I think he would have a lot of success. He had a bit of pace.
Yeah.
He did. So there was times, though, however, he got a lot of stick for being offside a lot, in fairness. And there was times where you would almost see him kind of I used to argue the fact, I would have been 13 at the time when he played for us. Sorry if that made you feel old. But I'd always apologies. But he'd always be offside. And that's when I always used to argue the fact about the offside rule. I wish strikers got the benefit of the doubt and things like that, because if they did, he was always just a leg offside. He'd been Premier League top goal scorer, man. It'd been Shearer being taken down outside, would have Cisse but no,
I still think we should have a statue anyway.
Absolutely, I think you're right about Isak as well in his movement. It'd be brilliant if if you can utilise that, and obviously now we've got better kind of players within the team.
Mind if he starts banging,
I hope he can flourish.
If he starts banging in 40-yard volleys or goals from like outside the box on the wing, then we're going to be in with a player on our hands, mate.
I think we are anyway, Daryl. I think we are.
Well,
anyway.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Right, so that about wraps it for this one. Thanks, boys. I've had a really good time. It's not bad being a Newcastle fan. We're in a semi-final. We're third in the league. We're banging in the goals. Everyone is pulling in the right direction, just like everyone is here on the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. If you like this sort of content, we've got much more coming your way. After this recording, we're doing a live watch. Well, we're not. Chris and Decker are doing a live watch of the Carabao Cup draw. That would have probably already happened by the time you're watching this. So go back and watch that. You'll know who we've got by then, but they'll always be fun to have with Chris and Decker on a video, so why not? We've got match reactions coming up. Joe, will you be doing a quick fire preview this week?
Ooh, probably won't have time this week, unfortunately, but I'll be back for the next one.
Be back for the next one. Well, if you haven't seen those, Joe does quick fire previews on our TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube short channels. Put the links up right now on the screen for you all if you want to go and follow us on those socials. They're about a minute long, and he goes through pretty much everything. They're pretty decent. As well as that, obviously, if you want to, you can subscribe to us and also hit the little thumbs up button. That'll get us into the feeds of other Newcastle fans. We're getting a lot of interaction in the comments, so scroll down from this video right now. Let us know your predictions. Let us know what you think of Isak's movement, and let us know what you think of Dan Burns dancing, because it was a sight to behold last night. If you want to go one step further, we do have a membership program. It's $2.99 a month. That gives you early access to all of the pre-recorded videos, as well as access to the Telegram group. But for now, we will see what happens on Sunday. We're going into this one full of confidence. We'll no doubt have a nice flag display or another scarf display. I think Shearer tweeted War Flags and said, can we make this scarf thing a permanent fixture? So if Shearer wants it, I think Shearer's going to get it. So we'll take your flags again next week, and we'll make it a very, very nice atmosphere in St. James's Park, ready for Fulham on Sunday. I've been Scott. I've been your host for this one, and we'll see you all in the next one. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
See you later.